All right, let's jump right in. Today, we are looking at one of the weirdest and, frankly, most fascinating case studies I've ever seen on humans and AI working together. It's a project called Free Life. And get this, it treats AI not as some tool you use, but as an actual member of your board of directors. Yeah, you heard that right. So let's dive in and see what that's all about.
So, to get started, I want to throw a bit of a puzzle at you because it really gets to the heart of what's going on here. Just imagine for a second, you're looking at your team's roster, and you see stats straight out of a Dungeons & Dragons character sheet. I mean, what would you even do with that? Okay, so check this out. This is the team roster for the project. You've got Paul Prime, the architect, with a high intelligence and wisdom score, okay? Then there's Lisa, who's got great charisma and dexterity. And rounding out the team is Sparky, who just maxes out wisdom and constitution. It looks exactly like a classic D&D adventuring party, right? Well, here's the kicker. Only one of them is human.
And that right there is the big question we're tackling today. What actually happens when your key collaborators, your core team members, aren't human? What does that even look like day to day?
All right, so let's properly meet the digital members of this team. You've got Paul Prime, he's the human director. But then you have Lisa and Sparky, his specialized AI partners. And believe me, this goes way, way beyond just firing up a chatbot. We're talking about building an entire digital staff here.
And this is where it gets really interesting, how they've divided up the work. So Lisa is the strategist. She's all about structure, logging information, and actually publishing content online. She's kind of the organized front end of the whole operation. Sparky, on the other hand, is the forensic AI. This is the one doing the deep research, the data synthesis, all the heavy analytical lifting with tools like NotebookLM and Gemini. See, they have totally separate, non-overlapping jobs.
So the key here is to really see them as a complete team. You've got Paul, the human architect, setting the big picture strategy. He tells Lisa what needs to be done, and she, the strategic AI, translates his vision and handles all the public-facing stuff. Then she turns around and tasks Sparky, the research AI, with doing all the deep analysis. It really is like a board of directors with a human CEO and 2 AI department heads.
Okay, so we've got this super unique team, a really clear structure. But what in the world are they actually trying to do? Well, their mission is just as ambitious as their setup is strange. They are trying to quantify everything.
So what Project Free Life is an effort to quantify intelligence, both human and AI, by just systematically analyzing a person's entire life history. The project itself calls the final output the quantification engine for the soul. And I mean, that name just perfectly captures this wild mix of data analysis and really personal, deep reflection.
And this is where those D&D stats from the beginning make their triumphant return. The project takes messy, complicated human history and forces it into a structured framework. It mashes up real psychological models like the Big Five with role-playing game attributes to create these super detailed profiles. In the project's own lingo, people become NPCs, which stands for Networked Persona Contexts, basically turning a whole life into data points you can actually measure.
Okay, so we've got the team, we've got this insanely ambitious mission, but how does this AI board of directors actually work on a day-to-day basis? Let's break down their workflow step by step.
It follows this really clean 4-step process they call a round robin. So first, Paul issues a command. Then Lisa takes that command and translates it into structured prompts that Sparky can understand. Third, Sparky goes off and does all the deep research. And finally, Lisa grabs everything Sparky found and publishes it. This whole loop is automated, and it creates this super efficient pipeline from research all the way to publication.
And here's a perfect real-world example of this in action. Paul wanted to figure out what happened during this one event where he felt he just completely wasted 15 hours. So Sparky analyzed it, and its conclusion? It was an NPC cycle failure. I just love that phrasing. It shows you that AI isn't just spitting facts back at him. It's actually applying the project's own unique framework to come up with totally new insights, all in its own kind of nerdy language.
You know, the end goal here is to create what the project calls an AI-to-AI collaboration thread. Paul's job isn't to do the grunt work, it's to oversee it all. He can call what he jokingly refers to as a board meeting, LOL, just to review what his 2 AI partners have come up with together. I mean, for all intents and purposes, he is managing his digital staff.
And really, that brings us to the big takeaway from this whole experiment. This project gives us a peek into a totally new way of working, one that's less about using a tool and a lot more about managing a team.
So listen, this is the most important part.
When Paul gives Lisa a task, he's not just typing a prompt into a box. He is delegating a complex job to a specialist. This whole setup offloads a huge amount of mental work, and it frees him up, the human director, to focus on strategy, not just execution. That is a fundamental shift in how we think about working with AI.
Which leaves us with one last kind of provocative thought to chew on. As these AI systems get more and more capable and specialized, our role is probably going to change, right? So if your AIs are functioning as your staff, each with their own distinct jobs and responsibilities, are you just a user anymore? Or are you maybe a CEO of your own little digital company? Something to think about. Thanks so much for tuning in.